What's going on, guys? After 3 weeks of more or less being out of commission due to COVID, I am back. I'm still sick, so excuse the coca again. Some of you guys mentioned it was distracting the last stream, but it's the only way I can fight off the symptoms. I just wanted to pop on tonight and discuss a lot of craziness. There's a lot of craziness going on in the world, a lot of beautiful things, so much potential, so much threat and crisis. In particular, the bombing in, is it Crimea, that killed Russian citizens, that they're saying the drone was under the control of the U.S. Air Force. That's almost definitely the beginning of World War III. It's a really intense moment to be alive. And on the other hand, there are all of these incredible revelations coming from the world of neuroscience, courtesy of Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff. Michael Levin's work with the electromagnetic field has basically, I don't want to say proven, but it definitely supports the idea that there is some sort of integrated intelligence in the field, which is, all of these things. The revelation that quantum effects can occur in the brain despite it being too warm and noisy, and the observation that microtubules are basically slurping up light, which could explain how it is that the superconductors in our brain that are normally not at the critical temperature, so they're not superconductive. If light hits certain superconductive materials, they become superconductors, even if the temperature's not right. That would explain how our brain is able to process enough information quickly enough to give rise to consciousness. So these things are developing in perfect lockstep because it's all connected. The good creates the bad creates the good. It's really kind of a difficult thing to come to terms with, because it really sort of makes you aware of the delicate tightrope walk that all life on this planet is constantly doing. The more promise there is, the greater the threat becomes. And I really believe we are living in the most tremendous moment in human history in terms of the fact that if we are able to change the trajectory of certain elements, basically the lunatic elite that are trying to exert control over the population of the planet, just specifically because they know that we are uncovering the truth about our reality, our place in it, our understanding of nature and consciousness. Along with all of these other revelations, studies have fairly recently proven that certain plants can count on 2 number lines simultaneously, Venus flytrap. Some have memory. They can recognize relatives. They're more sentient than cows. The discovery that this slime mold could engineer subway systems without neurons has basically overthrown the old paradigm belief that consciousness is dependent upon a brain. So we are watching the unification of what we have been told our whole lives are 2 opposing concepts, I guess, that science debunks religion or spirituality, and that, a lot of people believe that you have to abandon reason and critical thinking in order to have a spiritual life. And we're watching science and certain schools of mysticism actually dovetail perfectly. And properly understood, that is the key that unlocks the door of liberating mankind through the revelation of our sovereignty. And it's not new to anyone that transcendental experiences change the way people relate to other people, the way they relate to themselves, and how they perceive nature and the entire paradigm that has allowed people to manipulate humanity and to misguide and distract and divide cannot survive the revelation of truth. And so that's the moment we're in. That's my belief anyways, that the fundamental reason, the prima mobile, the primary driving factor behind the chaos and the economic, plummet and the threat of world war and all of these other engineered circumstances are happening because the people, the overlords, are fully aware that if they don't get absolute control right away, they're going to lose it completely. And so it's a precarious, we are perched on a precarious precipice, and the question of where that leaves us as individuals is really difficult to answer in the moment. It's, on the one hand, we don't want to just abandon society prematurely and become paranoid and panic. On the other hand, we have to take seriously the possibility that food supplies are going to, all sorts of global chaostrophe implications come to mind when you consider the possibilities. So for myself, I'm looking at plots of land in the jungle, and really trying to calmly prepare as best as I can for the transitions that's coming. Because I think up until, really it's been clear for a long time, but this last incident in Russia, I think if we were clinging to hope that we're not going to see this thing play out, in a potentially disruptive manner, to put it mildly, that's pretty much out the window at this point. So, just for what it's worth, I encourage everyone out there to really do everything you can to put yourself in the best possible position to navigate what's coming, And I think that it's really overwhelming to consider how few people have really managed to fully extricate themselves from the cultural mind-forged manacles, and try to imagine some catalyst that could unify people in time. Because the reality is that the kind of change that needs to be effected is not going to happen on any kind of meaningful level unless there's a unified sense of purpose. And people are so divided that, and the way that the propaganda is engineered, the fundamental device that it uses is our biases, cognitive biases. And an interesting side note, the other night I was trying to do research on propaganda, and I could not find one single video on YouTube that mentioned the single most powerful, ubiquitous mechanism. Not one video. And I don't know why. I'm not saying that YouTube, deleted all the videos that mention this, but it strikes me as very, very odd, that the most important concept was not mentioned in any of them. And what it has to do with is cognitive dissonance and forcing people to hold conflicting beliefs simultaneously. And then once those beliefs have taken root, because all of our cognitive biases serve a purpose in terms of survival, heuristic bias, probably the most obvious, we believe that because things went a certain way 100 times in the past, they're going to happen that way again. So that allows us to ride a bicycle without having fear that we're going to get hit by a car, So they serve a purpose. And that for that reason, they're connected to our instinct. So once these things have taken root, if someone challenges either side of these conflicting ideas, they have a fight or flight response. And so if you're wondering why it's so difficult to explain obvious concepts and realities to people, that's the answer. Once these things are entrenched, it makes it impossible to approach whatever issue it is from either side. So, that makes our job difficult, and the only solution that I can see is that we have no choice but to turn our focus inward, to do everything we can to ground ourselves, to empower ourselves, to build community of like-minded people, and not in a sort of loose, casual way, but to really start networking in a meaningful way as much as we possibly can, By the way, speaking of networking and supporting people, I have a few new patrons. I would like to acknowledge Louis, thank you for your support, and Fernando Perez, and Marta Ferrari, and Dominic Anand. Thank you guys all so much for your support. And everybody else, if you're not a patron, you should join the Patreon. I am demonetized. I get no support from YouTube. And we are having another Discord voice chat tomorrow at 8 for patrons only. And these are always incredible conversations. And I'm really encouraging my community to reach out to each other and see what kind of skills people have, what kind of knowledge we can share, and really do everything we can do to put ourselves in the best possible position we can be in as quickly as possible. And then if everything turns out to be all right, we have done no harm, no foul, because we have just made ourselves better. Speaking of all that, a couple of relevant Luna, Tickle, Eat. I'm just checking in with the chat. Yeah, somebody in the vertical chat just mentions Solana innovating in some way. For sure, the Solana chain is the one to watch if you're into crypto. This could be a great way to empower ourselves quickly. I've noticed there are a couple of influencers on Twitter whose calls are consistently incredibly good. So I'll also share those in the Discord and the Patreon chat because, it's kind of gambling, but it's true that a lot of the Solana meme coins right now are absolutely exploding. So the reality is that you could, make a tiny investment and it could change your life. So again, I'll put those in the chat. And on the subject of consciousness, I have to look more into this. I'll probably make a video about it. I'm trying to get Stuart Hammeroff to come on the podcast. I think that would be amazing. But he just posted something the other day saying that they have found evidence that psychedelic compounds are actually fundamental to life, not just the expansion of consciousness. And I found that to be, of course, really interesting. But they reminded me of like another theory that our perception of color comes from DMT. Anyways, like I said, I have to look more into this, but if you guys go to Stuart Hameroff's Twitter, you should, if you're on Twitter, follow that guy for sure. I mean, it's just incredible how quickly this understanding of consciousness and its relationship to light is unfolding. It's really a remarkable thing to behold. Also, keep your eyes out for a couple of videos that I feel are really important. I watched Professor Dave debunking Billy Carson, and it hit me that I could debunk Professor Dave at least as much as Billy Carson, who is absolutely full of shit, by the way. But it's the reason it's going to be so powerful is that it really gives me an opportunity to show how science can be such a trap for, you know, the intellect and even limit progress, because it's really obvious that Professor Dave is so heavily influenced by the old paradigm that he's not even following these cutting edge developments and has no idea that they've happened. It really blew my mind to realize that how much he's unaware of. So that's going to be a really, really entertaining and revelatory video. And then I ran into a girl that I've known for a while, but I didn't have any way to contact her. And she had mentioned to me that there's a community about 40 minutes away from here, way up in the mountains, that you cannot enter without permission from the community. And she says she can get permission so I can go in there and interview and hopefully convince these shamans, San Pedro shamans, to come and host some ceremonies at our retreat in August and September. I feel pretty confident about it. But the story is that they have more or less refused contact with the outside world. And that's, you know, one of my primary areas of interest is trying to find shamans that have not been influenced by the industry. And it is extremely difficult to do at this point. I've actually only met one curandera that actually practices in the real original way, which is the shaman drinks the ayahuasca and works on the patient. The patient doesn't drink the ayahuasca. That's how it used to be done. And in all the years that I've been traveling and working with different, you know, shamans from different tribes, this is one person that I've encountered that still works in this way. So I'm really excited at the prospect of getting to go and talk to some barely contacted shamans up in the mountains. By the way, you guys, chat is totally open to Q&A. Like I said, I still have COVID, so I'm not exactly firing on all cylinders tonight. But it had been like, you know, 7 or 8 days. I think I streamed once after the ban, right? You guys know about this? I have to be careful what I say because I can't afford any more strikes. But I got a 7-day ban and a strike for talking about something that was found in Coca-Cola and Pepsi. And I read all of the information from National Institute of Health study and NCBI reports. So 100% mainstream, you know, respected medical journals. And they said it was medical misinfo. So I guess Coke and Pepsi are medical products now. But yeah, you know, one of the reasons I'm mentioning that again is I feel that the implications of that are extremely important to consider. And if you didn't see the video, you can find it on Rumble. In fact, I would encourage you guys to watch any of my content that you're going to watch on Rumble. And of course, you know, don't ever leave YouTube, mighty algorithm. So yeah, lots of interesting stuff on deck. Unfortunately, I was too sick to go to Inti, which is Incan sun worship festival that has been going on for 900 years or something. I was pretty bummed about that, but I was too sick. We didn't make it. So what even did I say I was going to talk about tonight? Let's see. Entheogens, consciousness. Yeah, all right. Well, those are my updates. If anybody has any questions or subjects that they would like me to riff on, please put them in the chat. I guess in addition to all that, you know, something of substance that I think I could offer, something I've noticed, is that when you start going down this rabbit hole of metaphysics and the occult and psychedelics, people tend to abandon the search for real-world knowledge, you know? And I really, really feel that the most fruitful approach is to do these things in step with each other, you know, so that you are learning everything you can and remaining fully connected with the mystery to the greatest extent possible, and really growing in all directions at once, you know. When you do this, it causes a sort of exponential growth. And yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton to say about that, but it's just something I've observed that, you know, you don't want to get derailed and miss the primary objective of real spirituality, which is fundamentally about increasing knowledge and increasing understanding and learning to see the wiring under the board, the fundamental, the blueprint, the wiring under the board, Terence McKenna called it. And it really, both things enhance each other to a remarkable extent, you know. I think it's really unfortunate that our society has sort of cultivated this. It's social engineering, right? This attitude that learning about physics and biology and you know, neuroscience is tedious and mundane. And just wanted to take a second to encourage anyone out there that has that attitude to, you know, try to embrace the physical world knowledge just as much as any kind of occult or spiritual stuff. I don't see any questions or suggestions in the chat at all. Well, while we're on the subject of World War III, I guess, there's something happening that is deeply concerning to me, and I hesitate to talk about it because I really don't want to alienate anyone right now or contribute to the fanning the flames of division. So I really am sort of inclined to avoid talking about anything political. But in 2020, I predicted, based on observations of certain rhetoric and propaganda, and also just the social climate that was being created, that Donald Trump was being set up to be a dictator. And this, I'm gonna do a video about this in a few days too, but there's a number of things. The first and foremost, in order to engineer a totalitarian state, you have to combine the parties and only have one party. And part of that process is that you frame the opposite party as evil and not just political opponents, right? And that's definitely happening. I'm not going to get too deeply into this right now, but despite the fact that dismantling the FBI and a lot of these other government agencies sounds good at face value, if you read through this 900-page plan that the Republicans have engineered, they plan to purge the schools of leftists. They want to remove all Democrats from the federal government. And once they eliminate the Department of Education and the FBI and all of these things, they're going to be replaced by something that is more or less under the direction of one person. I mean, like I said, I don't want to talk about it too much, but I do want to make sure that I mention that it is terrifying to me that even the most ardent Trump supporter doesn't hear this stuff and see this stuff and instantly realize what's actually happening, It's really baffling to me that people are so determined to remain in their, I don't know what to call it, their, belief system, to the extent that it's like you're staring this dragon that's inches from your face, right in the eyes, and just saying it's not there. I don't see anything. It's really just almost impossible for me to believe. But mark my words, if you're one of those people refusing to believe this, it's definitely happening. It's definitely happening. Yeah, I'm pretty much speechless, I guess. Man, you guys are not helping me out much tonight with the questions and comments. Epic sunglasses, yeah. Well, on the subject of entheogens, one of the most important contributions that they make to humanity is that they offer a real experience of the transcendental. And one of the best examples that I can give of that is that I had this experience 5 or 6 years ago with this shaman who I had already noticed was extremely telepathic. And most of you guys probably know that the alkaloids in the ayahuasca vine, the harmalas, used to be called, I think, telepamine and telepathine. Somebody said I convinced them to stop eating fast food. That is awesome. Hold on. Yeah, because you need your third eye, and that kind of food doesn't help it function. But what I was saying is that I already noticed this shaman was extremely telepathic. Without any ayahuasca, the first time it happened, I was sitting by him on the bus, and I was thinking about how the first thought that I had when I saw my partner, who's in the other room with our son now, was that she will have your babies. And it wasn't my thought exactly. It was, Pachamama, the ayahuasca narrator. It was the day after ceremony. And I was sitting there thinking about it and how ridiculous it was. And as soon as the thought passed through my head, he looked at me and he said, the first time I saw my partner, the first thought that I had was that she will have my babies. And, you know, I was like, what just happened? And that happened innumerable times, but I think maybe the most important one, I was laying on the deck of this house out in the jungle, and I watched a mosquito land on my forehead, and then it bit me. And it hit me that it was real and that I had watched it, but my eyes were closed. And so my vision was kind of tinted, like orange, and I'm assuming that's because I was looking through blood. But I tested it a bunch of ways. I got up and walked around and, you know, moved my hand in front of my face, and it tracked perfectly, and a bunch of tests. And the next morning when I went downstairs, the first thing he said to me was, sometimes you can see through your forehead when you drink the medicine, which is a pretty random thing to say to someone, right? So I went home and I checked to see if the pineal gland is actually wired, and it turns out it does have rods and cones, and that it is connected to the neovisual cortex. So the other implication there is that the third eye has always been associated with these sort of sixth sense type phenomena. So we have this compound that apparently activates it, and it was associated with an instance of telepathy, right, with the shaman the next morning. So there were layers of value that came from this single experience, you know, that I was able to confirm that it is physically capable of visual perception. And I also recently discovered that there are tribes in South America that know what the third eye is, and, or, you know, they have known since before exposure to outside influence, what it does and where it is. So you know what I mean? That's the kind of thing that I think it's a tool that transcends rational belief, and it almost allows us to apply the same kind of standards that you would in science to these sort of experiences. And that is such powerful medicine for people, for an entire culture that has been disassociated with or from this kind of knowledge and these kind of experiences. You know, it builds a bridge between the sort of metaphysical and spiritual gnosis that you experience with these things and the Western mind in a way that it cannot escape. You know, there's no real possibility of invalidation after a certain point. So that is awesome. Stoned and listening, Gabrielle. Natural State, good to see you guys. So I'm still waiting for questions and comments because, as I keep saying, I am still fighting COVID, so I'm not my usual lucid self. Actually, in quite the days. Oh yeah, so one last subject, if I don't get any other questions or suggestions from you wonderful viewers out there. I have been talking about how there has been an acceleration of, I guess, the evolution of consciousness, and the result of that, and I mean in the microcosm for myself, and I think probably for everyone out there that is connected to this process. You know, I call it the Phoenix process. And months ago, I had this feeling that it was coming back around. So Phoenix Process 2.0. And I also had a feeling that it was going to be on a grander level, right? And shortly after that, we did indeed experience a bunch of like really over the top synchronicities, just incredibly improbable. And shortly after that, the solar storm started on a level that was, you know, way bigger than the last time. And the solar storm was one of the, like towards the beginning of the original Phoenix Process experience that I had 10 or 15 years ago, whatever it was, a solar storm was a significant part of that process then. And so what I'm getting at here, I think, is that I don't believe that it's a coincidence that these solar storms are getting more and more intense. I think it's supposed to continue until 2025, June of 2025. And all of the sort of opposing forces also seem to be culminating, you know? So it's like the inevitable result of all this is that, and I didn't mention that linked to the Phoenix Process and the solar stuff, there's all these incredible developments coming from neuroscience and, you know, Michael Levin's work with the field and all that. So what I'm getting at is that there's more momentum behind that consciousness evolving element of our reality right now than there's ever been. You know, it's synced up with science. The most cutting edge, mind-blowing developments in neuroscience and morphology and physics are directly connected to this knowledge that is sort of erupting through any vessel it can find that is willing and able. You know, the correspondence with World War III, you know, and all of this. Today, the Bolivian government, the military surrounded the palace, and so they're overthrowing the government there. I mean, you guys know what I'm talking about. The interesting, or I mean, it's almost interesting in a negative way. That's yet to be seen, but the implication, I guess, is that the old world machinery is quite likely on the brink of physically destroying itself, just as this new, it's not a new consciousness, but you could call it real consciousness, you know? I think without all the indoctrination and brainwashing and dissonance patterns that have been created in us, we actually would know all of this stuff. So I don't want to call it new, because it's not. You know, mystery adepts for sure have understood all of this stuff for thousands of years. You know what I mean? But so let's call it the reemergence of this profound understanding of how the universe works and, you know, our true purpose and this, you know, it's evolutionary step that we can't continue to survive without is emerging exactly in lockstep with the old world fucking blowing itself to smithereens, I guess, long story short. Someone asked if I believe in extraterrestrials. That's a difficult question to answer. I've definitely had experiences that suggest very strongly that there's some truth to that. I once on ayahuasca received information about the third celestial body in the Sirius star system, and you know, they've known there was a wobble on Sirius B for a long time and suspected there was something, but it was explained to me that the influence of the two stars on this third body had restricted it from becoming a red dwarf, and so it remained a gas giant. And about 10 days later, a paper was published on the internet that said that had been confirmed. There was more to the story, basically, but the Dogon in Africa also had star charts that were accurate up to like 7 star systems away that we just confirmed with Hubble, and they also associated, or they claimed to have gotten this knowledge from extraterrestrials from Sirius. The blue star in the Masonic lodges is Sirius. The Hopi, who have the blue star prophecy that blue star is also Sirius, they have secret knowledge that they identify other keepers of the secret knowledge with secret handshakes, just like the Freemasons. Freemasons have the blue star in the lodge, Hopis have the blue star. And then a few weeks after I received this, astrophysics from about Sirius, I found out that the Kofan, who are an ayahuasca drinking tribe in the Amazon, also say that they are in communication with beings from Sirius when they drink ayahuasca. There's a bunch more of those things. I made a video a while back about that. So, that's pretty interesting stuff. I also had an experience where I visually saw a bunch of what appeared to be gray aliens, but they were translucent, almost like they were holograms. The interesting part about that is that every single person in this town that I ran into the next day, none of whom knew each other, I was the only common denominator, all described having seen these beings, all described as translucent. That's pretty hard to just write off, right? And I also had an experience when I was like 21 where I ate an ungodly amount of psilocybin mushrooms, and I found myself on a UFO, and it's not like I was tripping. There weren't like, undulating geometries, or it was crystal clear, and there were just these guys in business suits, sitting there like casually just staring at me, and I knew they were aliens, so I was like, why are you guys dressed like, yuppie businessmen? And they said, that doesn't really matter. We take whatever form we want, and this is like not distracting. But what you need to know is that there are not agreements. It's more like if you reach a certain level of consciousness, you kind of understand how to conduct yourself, right? Like there's, in the Masonic tradition, for example, morality is believed to be something almost like gravity, that there is some fundamental morality that's, like a law. And so it's more like an awareness of that, I think. And they said that they cannot intervene in the development or, whatever of any species until they're on the brink of actually destroying themselves. And considering that there has been all of this, disclosure, right as we're about to enter into World War III, it really is a bit eerie, and so it's difficult to answer that question because, for example, these beings that were seen by all of these people, I was a pot grower, I think, at the time, yeah. And one of the other people was a pot grower and his son, who was like 9. And then there was a ex-bandito, which is like Mexican biker gang, and a guy that operated a printing press. So, what in the hell is the point of extraterrestrial beings coming and just sort of running around and not really doing anything with these, this group of people? it doesn't. I don't see any reason for that. So I've suspected, as Terence McKenna and a lot of other people have suspected, that they're not physically here, that they are either holograms. And the idea Terence McKenna had that they were from the future, ourselves from the future. I've considered that it probably is a lot easier to send a hologram back in time than an actual flesh and bone person. I think it's also possible that they could be some sort of interdimensional being, a projection from the collective mind. It's really difficult to say, exactly what's going on with that. But if you mean, do I believe that there are aliens anywhere in the universe? There absolutely are, definitely have to be. It's difficult to make sense out of it when you think about motive and the difficulty. A lot of people talk about how they believe that they came here to harvest gold, which is completely dumb because we, with our technology, we can't travel to other star systems, but we have figured out how to make gold from other elements. So if we have that technology, for sure, an advanced race would, so coming all the way to Earth and harvesting a bunch of gold that's like the heaviest element, and then flying it to another, nothing about it makes sense. Not only that, but there are meteors that are like solid gold. There are other planets that would, almost certainly be closer. So when you think about like motive, it's difficult to imagine why there would be aliens here and why they would have an agenda. And if they did have an agenda, what is stopping them from just taking over and doing whatever they want? Not us, what are we going to do to stop them? So I don't really know, exactly how to answer that. One interesting element of this, though, is that there have been videos of UFOs hitting the ocean at incredible speeds and then coming back out in a time frame that shows that they were not impeded by hitting the water. And a .50 caliber Desert Eagle pistol fired underwater is not lethal at something like 18 inches. So, it's hard to say what's going on. Is it super advanced technology from Earth or, secret government stuff? Or if they are here, though, I think we're about to find out. Let's put it that way. Do we have any more questions? What do you mean you're loaded on blue datura? That sounds crazy. All right, well, I'm not seeing any new questions or subjects, and I need to just rest so that I don't die from COVID. But, the last thing I have to say about all this is just the obvious. All of us that are aware of the transition that is happening and the risk-reward potential and have any kind of desire to make any kind of contribution, we just really have to take our efforts at making ourselves, creating ourselves in the perfect image of our higher selves as rapidly as possible, because that is going to allow us to make the contribution that we need to make if there's going to be any hope for the future. So, let's see, is that a question? No. So, having said all that, we are still booking for the retreat. If you're interested in coming to that in August or September, shoot me an email. And I'll be back with new videos and live stream in a couple of days, and hopefully I'll be feeling better and I'll be a little bit more concise and coherent. But until then, everybody just keep your chins up and make gods of yourselves and goddesses. You have to keep our focus on the potential, and don't be afraid to take action, though, man. If you're in a major city, get the hell out. Get the hell out. So, patrons, by the way, don't forget to come to the voice chat tomorrow. There's a lot that we need to discuss. And thank you all so much for spending this time with me and supporting the channel, and I'll see you guys again soon.